Welcome to another episode of the Snap Fantasy Football Podcast, your weekly dose of news and advice that comes to your pocket every single Saturday. Holding it down, here we got Mac, Mark, Scott, and Landon. Enjoy today's show.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another segment of the Snap Fantasy Football Podcast. You've come in at the perfect time for you to look down and hit that subscribe button. That goes a long way for supporting our independent podcast and all the work we do, grinding it out, trying to make everyone have a stronger fantasy football season. So, right now, we are going to talk about one of my favorite sophomore players, and that is the Washington wide receiver of Ole Miss, Terry McLaurin. That's right. Scary Terry, aka McLaurin F1. This guy's a talented young man, and he had a formidable rookie season. In fact, he had the second best third round wide receiver rookie season. The first best ever being Keenan Allen. So that puts him right there in a really high discourse for his rookie season. And I'm really excited on him. I actually own him and plan on owning him several more places this year. But we're going to look at his temperature this year and see where the four members of this podcast stand on a guy that is hot and cold among drafts these days. So I'm going to kick it first and foremost to Scotty.
What a setup for Scary Terry. I love how much you love Scary Terry, and I hate to be the bringer of bad news, but for standard leagues, I am cold on Scary Terry. Now, I will say, first of all, the dude is super talented. He's going to have an amazing career, and if we're talking exclusively Dynasty, sell the farm. Go get this guy, because he is an amazing project, and I think he's got a great career ahead of him. Now, with that being said, I think 2020 is not the year that you want to get him at his current ADP. So right now, he's going around the 602. The range varies higher or lower, but what you can see in consecutive drafts is right beside him is a guy like JUJU Smith-Schuster. Now, I, for one, would rather go for a lot of the wide receivers in this range, specifically JUJU, in standard drafts, because I think there's a much higher chance that JUJU gets reunited with Big Ben and has 1 year of glory with that quarterback than I do that McLaurin finds a quarterback that is able to just emerge 100 times better than he was last year, and that is Mr. Dwayne Haskins. So all the skill is there, but I just think Dwayne Haskins is going to be holding this guy back. And I think it will take at least one more season for Haskins to really grasp the NFL. And unfortunately, if you're in a redraft league, it doesn't matter how much talent the guy has and how great his 2021-22 is going to be. You need results now. And at the current ADP, I just think there's way too much talent in better situations than betting the farm on Scary Terry with a quarterback that I'm just not willing to put my chips down on.
So you're scared of Terry for the wrong reasons. Correct. Okay, so I'm with Scott a little bit. I'm on both sides of the fence here. Scary Terry, he checks a lot of boxes. Like, he gets separation. He at times looks special on the field. He looks like he makes a huge difference. And at times that was very, very true. The biggest thing that people will criticize Terry McLaurin for if they're non-believers in 2020 is Dwayne Haskins. And I think that they have some right to say so. If we look back at last year, Terry McLaurin finished as the wide receiver 24, so wide receiver 2, in half PPR leagues. In his week 8 through 15 game stretch with Dwayne Haskins as the starter, Terry McLaurin fell to wide receiver 41, and over that stretch went from 11.5 points per game to 9 points per game. So with Dwayne Haskins was worse off by 2.5 points on a per week basis. Take that as you may. Matchup dependency, there's a variety of factors. Corner coverages, who knows? But that's a fair enough sample size, half of a season, to say that Dwayne Haskins is potentially costing Terry McLaurin's upside a little bit of space. So I think that is one place to be, cognizant of. The other thing is that if we look at where he's being drafted right now at the 602, just like kind of Scott alluded to, I would much rather have JUJU Smith-Schuster. And there was one other player that I had on my brain. Maybe you guys can help me out. Marquise Brown, thank you. I would rather take the upsides on those guys with potentially better offenses, like Lamar, MVP candidate. Big Ben, we know how he likes to throw it downfield. Dwayne Haskins hasn't got his feet fully wet yet, and I think that the receivers in Washington may have to suffer with that. So I think that argument about Dwayne Haskins not fully being ready to deliver the volume that these guys need is definitely a valid argument. And I think with Antonio Gibson coming in and, people are hyping him up, that hype train is rolling through the station pretty heavily. If that pans out, or even Darius Geis stays on the field long enough, this could be a very run-heavy team that doesn't want to put the ball in the air a lot. So in Dynasty, he's a firm hold for me. I wouldn't even sell him. I do think he's going to be great because he does, again, pass a lot of those eye tests. But for me in redraft at the 602, I would rather have JUJU. And I'd rather have Marquise Hollywood Brown. So I just don't love his ADP right now. Who knows what happens, closer to draft season.
All right, guys. I got to bring Terry up here. I am not scared of this guy. Last year, he had 93 targets. I could easily see him having over 100 targets. 120 targets would not be out of the realm of possibility. He is the unequivocal number one wide receiver in his offense. And he came down with an 82.4 contested catch rate. Against double teams, he had a 91.7% contested catch rate. His talent will make him get those targets. He had a great fantasy year because he caught all these touchdowns. And I think that's going to keep on happening. He had 40.5% of the fantasy points for the wide receivers on that team, and that is not going to change. They didn't bring anyone in to take any away. I think having Gibson in there maybe is a good pass catcher, being compared to Christian McCaffrey. That just helps Terry get open and maybe get maybe a little bit less double coverage. Dwayne Haskins could easily take a step forward this year, and I think he's going to be a great value in that 6th round. I'm not scared of that ADP at all. People are worried about it because of Dwayne Haskins, and that doesn't concern me. JUJU, all right, I get it. JUJU's still younger than Terry, which is kind of weird to think of, and I would agree with you guys. But Michael Gallup's going right before him. AJ Green's going right before him. We know that Terry's the number one in that offense, and he had a really good rookie year, and I expect him to have even a better sophomore year in the NFL, and his upside, his ceiling is through the roof. I ain't scared of F1 Terry McLaurin.
The only thing, Landon, that I don't really value is what is the wide receiver one for Dwayne Haskins really worth? It's a tough.
Well, he's going to go over 1,000 yards. He could still have 7 touchdowns is what he had last year, and he could easily have that again. 7 or 10 touchdowns is his realm of possibility, being that go-to red zone guy. I know they may not have as much trips to the red zone than other teams, but when they're there, I think he's the go-to guy.
I don't disagree that he'll probably see more targets than he did last year, and for a rookie to see nearly 100 targets, again, is a great sign. I just don't know what the wide receiver one is worth. I don't know if he outperforms his ADP. I don't. It'll be tough.
Yeah, I kind of like what you said earlier, Mac. Landon, when you say when they get near the red zone, scary Terry's who they're going to be looking at. I don't disagree. But at the same time, they're only going to be looking at him through the air. And with that large stable of running backs that they've accumulated, the talent in that room, especially if any of them can stay healthy for the entire season, I just don't know how many times they'll be looking to the air to get that touchdown. I really think they're going to be trying to rush that thing over, trying to punch it in over the goal line more often than not before they're going to turn to Dwayne Haskins and say, all right, game's on the line. It's up to you to make the throw. I could see them trying to run it 3, maybe 4 times sometimes before they're willing to really put it on the line with Haskins. So he's going to have to progress a lot to get enough red zone opportunities to really justify that ADP.
So I hear what you guys are all saying, and I'm going to finish off with a couple points here that I think are really important to consider when you're thinking about McLaurin or Haskins. So Haskins, I think personally, his play can only go up. You look at this team last year, and they were plagued with injuries. They had coaching changes. They started the season 0-5 and ended up canning Jay Gruden. They brought in Bill Callahan, and from that point on, Terry's production slowed down because they essentially stopped throwing the ball in that Callahan offense. And, it's just, I feel like maybe with a little more consistency, some new coaching with Ron Rivera, I just feel like maybe some of the gears are going to start turning. And I don't think Dwayne Haskins is as bad as he was in his rookie season. I feel like of any, sophomore quarterback, he will show a lot of growth. I know he's been putting in a lot of work with lots of different really talented players, and he does throw a really good deep ball. But it's kind of funny, when he was being drafted, this is Haskins, not McLaurin, people were unimpressed about how teams were fading him, but it's sort of starting to show that maybe it was merited a bit. Personally, I may take a chance on Haskins if he's late, but McLaurin, at the end of the day, is the most talented wide receiver on this offense. There's not competition for him there. And like you said, Mac, what is a wide receiver 1 on Washington worth? Well, 1,000 yards, I would say, and guaranteed 100 targets or more. So I'm going to leave it at that. Actually, we've got a great opportunity coming up. If you dig this podcast, you may just want to land yourself a spot in our listener league. It is a highly competitive league. We love doing it, and we've got a lot of guys kind of lining up, waiting to hear more updates and to see who's the next recruit. So you can be that if you leave us a solid review on Apple Podcasts. But don't forget to look down, stay subscribed to our page, go through our content, and make sure you like and comment some of these videos too. So that'll do it for our piece on Terry McLaurin. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.